I'm going to share today is mostly about e-commerce, so specific into a area that we want to look into. So I'm a Singaporean. I've been in Shanghai for about 5 to 6 years. So I've seen how the e-commerce scene has kind of changed in China for a while. We shared a lot of numbers earlier, so I thought I would share some numbers here as well. The e-commerce, the online shopping, it has kind of changed the world of retailing, what we see in China. Sales are expected to exceed 752 billion in 2016, and this is going to grow even more. And this is going to create a lot of disruption, like what we mentioned earlier. But this disruption came with a lot of opportunities that we can see moving on. So I'm going to share some trends. So e-commerce on mobile is only just going to grow bigger. So out of the 752 billion that you've seen, 70% is going to be on mobile, and this is going to shift. So we're shifting from a big screen, like a desktop, to an iPad, and now to mobiles, and Internet of Things in the future. Online food beverage traditionally was so difficult to kind of sell online. It's 2 or 3 years ago, people wouldn't imagine getting fresh groceries into your doorsteps. Now, the adoption is so high. More than 50% of people in China are now adopting the online food and beverage, and this is only going to grow because this is only a very small percentage of their pocket spent right now. In the McKinsey study, we have also seen that the lower tier cities, which are your third and fourth tier cities, are going to outpace the tier 1 and tier 2 cities. So if you're thinking about setting up your own business in China, don't go to tier 1 and tier 2, go to tier 3 and tier 4, because they are going to spend more. And because the mindset is quite different, if you imagine tier 3 and tier 4 cities in the beginning, you have a very narrow and repertoire types of brands and products to choose from. Suddenly, the e-commerce platform has kind of given them this opportunity to buy so many more things, and they have that purchase power to actually buy a lot of things. So this is where we see the growth coming in for China in the next few years. The other thing that is happening in China is the social communities. No longer will brands on TV or radio be as effective compared to your social network that's going to influence your e-commerce sales. There was this article, I think a few months ago, having this one lady, a Wang Hong, that can sell thousands of cars within 1 hour. So that's how powerful the social company is going to get, and that's how e-commerce sales is going to grow. Right. We talk about a lot of all these changes in the market. So consumers are now being faced with a very complex e-commerce environment, and this environment are changing all the time. If you go to Tmall, Taobao, you can see that the interface are changing all the time, and they're always experimenting with new ways of selling products to your consumers, changing behavior. And for marketers, there are a lot of barriers because now there's a less barrier for smaller brands to come in and be in your face. If you think about the traditional retail channels of a shelf, the smaller brands are always going to be in the less prominent places with the least number of facings. And you're never going to spot them because they're in the very bottom shelf or the shelf on the top. But when you think about e-commerce, they're actually more prominent because you can do a lot of deselection, meaning you can do sorting by sales or by new products, and your new products or new brands just come out. So no longer are bigger brands going to be having that dominance in the market when e-commerce is going to change their behavior. So is it really that easy to sell e-commerce? Is it just taking a pack, taking a picture, putting on e-commerce, expect to sell? Well, a lot of big clients think that this is so, and that's a big mistake. Because if you were just to put your pack into an e-commerce platform and expect them to sell, do you think you can see the claims that you have seen right now? Or is this environment actually much more complicated? Take, for example, this screen grab that I took. This is a beer market. Is there too much information in the visual that the shoppers are not really sure what you're trying to communicate? The packs are all the same, but the way you execute it on the e-commerce platform have to have a more stringent thought. Can I really communicate the pack quantity very well? Many people would think this is a 6-pack, but actually selling it for 18-pack. So once you get a difference in terms of the information they are presenting through the visuals, you get a lot of miscommunication. They might click into a product page, end up not buying anything. Can you really communicate effectively the pack size? There's always this size perception that's going to influence people in terms of how they make shopping decisions. So this is actually a 2-liter Asahi. But from far, you might think that this might be a 300 PET. Or Can it be more visceral to improve sales conversion? Can we go a more emotional approach in executing your images on the e-commerce platform to try and convert more sales? So if you think about it, the environment is changing. There's no longer any shelf context. There's size perception. We have a shorter attention span. We don't spend so much time looking at all these things in detail. We are fast shoppers. So thinking about that, the shopping environment is really complex, so the challenge can be quite difficult. But is it really unmanageable? We think about all the different things that's happening, IoT, augmented reality. But the simple, consistent thing is that our behavior does not change. We are human beings. Even though we're irrational, there are certain things that's predictable, and that's our behavior. When we think about shopping, there's always two systems of thinking. One is the system one type of thinking, where it's shortcut, heuristics, by feelings, by habits. And we make that decision in a split second. When I go into a store, I go for my famous brand, Coke. It's in a pure red. I deselect any other colors, and that's how I do my shopping. System two is more a rational type of shopping, where I kind of do my fast shopping, and sometimes there are some more involved categories, like maybe your infant milk formula, which you want to read the claims, the functions. And that's when we have a deliberate and slower, involved, and more factual type of a shopping behavior. But when we talk about FMCG, it's mostly dominated by the system one type of thinking. So if you understand the context and understand how humans actually do their shopping using more system one, that's when you're going to succeed, even though your environment can be constantly changing. So here I'm going to share a case study which we have done for Coca-Cola. The objective was really to see how their new design should be put up in the e-commerce space to sell well, and also to get some shopper insights to see how we can improve the shoppability and conversion to sales. Okay. A study in Microsoft in year 2000 tested our average attention span. That was 12 seconds. The same time, we did the same experiment in 2013. It dropped to 8 seconds. This is even shorter than attention span of a goldfish. Can you imagine the attention span that we have right now in 2017? I don't know if it's going to be below 8 because they have not done tests. But at least I know I'm getting some attention. People are looking at me, so that's great. When we look at the e-commerce kind of a platform, it's no longer a horizontal kind of a panogram. People are not walking from left to right, right to left. If you walk from left to right and right to left, every product at least have a chance of being seen, whether it's on top or below. I'm walking past it. When we talk about e-commerce platform, it's a vertical panogram, which means there is a limitation of where I stop. If we think about the attention span that we have, there's a limit to our patience, and we will not kind of scroll through every single thing, every 1,000 products. So what we've noticed using eye tracking, if you look at the heat maps and all the information that we have there, we see that less than half of your shoppers will actually go through once you have come down to 7 mobile phone scrolls. Each mobile phone scroll is about 3.5 SKUs. So the moment you reach the 7th, that's when you do something else. You will not proceed. You'll kind of do sorting by sales, you can click into product page, or you get disinterested and do something else. The other predictable behavior that we have seen is that our physiological visibility is consistent. Our eye is trained to look at certain layout in a certain way when it's presented to us like that. So if you look at how the products are being shown, in a singular row, 2 columns or 3 columns, you would think, oh, I will look at everything. But no. The heat maps tells us if it's in a singular row, your attention is always on the product image rather than the text. Whereas in a 2x2 or 2 column, there's a natural tendency for our eye to just look on the left, which means if your product is on the right in a 2x2 matrix, it's going to be deselected, or you're going to be missed out. Okay, the e-tailers don't know this yet. If they really do, they're going to make it more expensive for you to put your products on the left and the right. In the 3 columns, people are looking in a central kind of a positioning. They'll deselect items on the left and right. It's just a natural tendency for our eye to look in this manner. So in that way, you actually have a consistent pattern. You actually know where are the cold spots and the hot spots that you should be focusing on or trying not to put your products in. If you have no choice and you have to put your products in the cold spots, which is the left and right in the 3rd column, then the image has to be very contrasting. It has to have the ability to kind of break through the clutter that we see right here. Now, eyes are also conditioned to be very lazy. You remember we are scrolling, we are no longer looking left to right. So that behavioral pattern, you need to make your image and your communication easier for the brain to absorb. While the brain has the capacity to kind of take in a lot of information, it is trained to be very lazy, which is why we come up with inventions on cars and things like that. We're always thinking of ways to quickly get the information. But if you present it in a way that is difficult for me to process it, then it's very difficult. So if you see on the left, that's how it was traditionally done. A lot of information, zigzag display, and people kind of deselect information once it's presented like that. But when it's a clear, simple way that's more central, you see that more information are being processed. Product image is king. So what this means is that when people shop, they look at the images more than the text or the price or the comments. The first initial beacon for shopping is always the image. So what we've seen in e-commerce shopping through eye tracking is that the product image is noted more than any of the other items that you see right here. So they'll often look at a few images, look at the text, and kind of go down. So what this implies is that you have to focus on the right product image. It's not just taking a pack, putting on the white background, and kind of making sure it sells. You need to find ways to create contrast, and that's how you can gain visibility. If you don't have the stopping power, what you're going to be facing is a lot of deselection. People are just going to scroll, and there's no patience. Next thing that I want to discuss about is the amount of text. Okay, when we see in the Chinese e-commerce kind of platform, a lot of different clients want to put a lot of text because they said, if I don't put enough text, they don't know what I'm selling. But the opposite is happening. The more text you put, the more I deselect information. It's just like looking at a report that's so texty. I kind of like, I don't want to read this. Make it clear, make it simple. I don't have time. It's that same concept happening here. The more information you put, the more deselection happens. But this is not saying that you shouldn't put anything, but there has to be a balance in terms of how you put it. So in this experiment that we did, we kind of placed it, you will see similar context. The SKU is kind of different, but the text, obviously the one on the left and the right is quite different. The left is more simple. If you look at this flash exposure, so what we did is we do a 1 second flash exposure and see what are the information that people get from a shorter text versus a longer text. And you see that key information like volume, the pack size, and the bundle, which is a 24-cam multi-packs, is not clearly communicated on the right when you have so much text. The other insights that we have from this case study is that shoppers, they do a lot of deselection. So when you think about your offline kind of a retail channel, you don't get a chance to do your automated sorting by sales. I don't know which one sells well, unless they do a promotional stack and say bestseller. In e-commerce, you can get to do a lot of deselection. So this deselection is, I sort by sales. I go for things that's most selling the best. I do search keywords. I can do sorting by price. I can filter by JD. So here is where we see behavioral economics in play again. Sorting by sales is something like it helps you facilitate the choice and encourage conformity. So when I'm a new consumer going into e-commerce, not familiar with the brand, I need someone to tell me. But then no one is buying into this, my friends doesn't buy into this, so what do I use to reinforce my decision? I use the sales numbers. I look at the sales numbers, thinking about how people shop. If most of the people are buying this product, it should be good. Which is why sometimes we see long queues in Singapore on the hawker centers. We have never tried the food. But then that queue indicates that the food must be good because most of the people are queuing for it. The same is happening here. The other things that we do is more system two type of thinking. Once we have kind of narrowed down all the different things that we want, we kind of go into a deeper process, thinking about the images, looking at the comments, looking at the details and promotions to kind of reinforce and say that this is the thing that I want to buy. So here there's another behavioral economics in play, and one of it is transmitter. So transmitter, we are talking about social communities that's going to have a bigger presence in the future. Like I said, brands are no longer going to be so effective in their advertising because they are looking towards other people to tell them that this is good, and this is the social network. So if you think about how the distance between the brands, so it's first the brand communicating, or you might have celebrities that spokespeople trying to sell the brand. Your next level is your key opinion leader or your Wang Hong. And then the next would be real consumers actually posting the reviews and comments to help you make decisions and making sure that, okay, this is the right choice to buy. And then the content and the pictures are the thing that is going to trigger my decision on whether I'm going to put it into my basket. Another thing in play is loss aversion. So viral dissemination, whether good or bad, is going to happen irregardless. But managing comments, managing bad comments is going to be much more important than good. Because even though the value of gaining versus the value of losing is the same, the value of losing is always going to be much more prominent in our head when we do shopping. Next is a video to try to explain this in an animated way. And that's the reason why a lot of clients are actually looking to third parties to kind of manage the negative comments. The moment one negative comment comes up, even if you have 20 good comments, it's going to just make me hesitant. So these third parties are there to kind of talk to the people who put up the negative comments, kind of give them some incentive to ask them to kind of take it down. Because if they don't, that's going to impact their sales by quite a lot. When we look at the execution of the packs that's put on e-commerce, we see that there's also differences. So when you put a more emotional kind of background, like the one in the middle, you can see that there's much more impulse. So people are buying more directly from the category page without even clicking into the product page. When you show it by quantity, they're still like, okay, you're telling me quantity, but it doesn't create that system one impulse that I want my consumers to have to quickly buy my product. So then emotional can kind of bring out impulse. And your product image doesn't, there's many different levels for you to succeed. You have to succeed from different levels to make sure that there's an actual conversion. Your image there's a presence on the category page. First, you have to compete against your competitor's image to make sure you stand out. Then, you need to make sure they click into your product page. And then your product page must stand out from the rest. So the details that you put on the product page has to have that push for me to kind of buy the product. But you might think that's all, but then there is the third level, which is the checkout page. The checkout page is when I confirm my purchase. In the beginning, you might have this impulse on clicking many different things. Oh, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. But on your checkout page, that's when you're more rationalized. Okay, but I only have $5. What am I going to do? Am I going to buy this and this and this? And be so effective in the advertising because they're looking towards other people to tell them that this is good. And this is the social network. So if you think about how the distance between the brands, so it's first the brand communicating, or you might have celebrities that spokespeople trying to sell the brand. Your next level is your key opinion leader or your Wang Hong. And then the next would be real consumers actually posting the reviews and comments to help you make decisions and making sure that, okay, this is the right choice to buy. And then the content and the pictures are the thing that is going to trigger my decision on whether I'm going to put it into my basket. Another thing in play is loss aversion. So viral dissemination, whether good or bad, is going to happen irregardless. But managing comments, managing bad comments is going to be much more important than good. Because even though the value of gaining versus the value of losing is the same, the value of losing is always going to be much more prominent in our head when we do shopping. Next is a video to try to explain this in an animated way. And that's the reason why a lot of clients are actually looking to third parties to kind of manage the negative comments. The moment one negative comment comes up, even if you have 20 good comments, it's going to just make me hesitant. So these third parties are there to kind of talk to the people who put up the negative comments, kind of give them some incentive to ask them to kind of take it down. Because if they don't, that's going to impact their sales by quite a lot. When we look at the execution of the packs that's put on e-commerce, we see that there's also differences. So when you put a more emotional kind of background, like the one in the middle, you can see that there's much more impulse. So people are buying more directly from the category page without even clicking into the product page. When you show it by quantity, they're still like, okay, you're telling me quantity, but it doesn't create that system one impulse that I want my consumers to have to quickly buy my product. So then emotional can kind of bring out impulse. And your product image doesn't, there's many different levels for you to succeed. You have to succeed from different levels to make sure that there's an actual conversion. Your image there has a presence on the category page. First, you have to compete against your competitor's image to make sure you stand out. Then, you need to make sure they click into your product page. And then your product page must stand out from the rest. So the details that you put on a product page has to have that push for me to kind of buy the product. But you might think that's all, but then there is the third level, which is the checkout page. The checkout page is when I confirm my purchase. In the beginning, you might have this impulse on clicking many different things. Oh, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. But on your checkout page, that's when you're more rationalized. Okay, but I only have $5. What am I going to do? Am I going to buy this and this and this and try to go it on credit? Or am I more systematic, thinking about, okay, this is the quantity I need. Okay, this is better than that. So your image has to work on 3 different levels before they get converted. And the right visuals can also change the perception in terms of equity. We talk about the AOIs and the Internet of Things and all this kind of stuff. We are saying, can they actually help to build equity? Yes, they can. So for this one, it's more about the size perception. Having a glass right next to the PET tells you that size of the bottle. If I were to remove that glass, you might think from that distance, this is going to be a small PET pack. But with that glass on the right, you can clearly know that this is a bigger bottle. If you notice the difference between the two images, the glass has changed. The lemon has changed. You might think that this is a small, subtle change. Nothing is going to be, the equity is going to be the same. But no. When you change small little things like that, it creates much more imagery or perception towards that product. Quenching for thirst, that imagery has went up. Having a more refreshing cup with the glass and the lemon has an impact. Suitable for summer drinking has went up as well. So there was a long list of attributes, but we find that this one has went up. So how you kind of execute that image is going to help you in making things work. So I'm going to pass on to Amy, where she's going to show some of the learnings that we have from that study and see how it's actually helping in the organization.
Thank you, Melvin. So at Coca-Cola, we are obsessed with the quality of execution. We have a lot of experience in doing offline type of execution to see how can we do the best in store. So given that the e-commerce has been become more important significantly, so we are feeling that we need to have the same thing to be done on e-commerce. So that's why we work with Melvin's team to see are there any little elements that we can improve in how we execute our e-commerce stores or pictures so that we can enhance not only sales but also the image of our products and our perceptions towards our consumers. So based on the learnings that from the study, we have developed 10 principles that we need to abide to for our e-commerce. So we share that with the e-commerce team, and then we are following these principles whenever we could. So today I'm going to share with you a couple of principles that we have implemented recently. First of all is about a picture is worth 1,000 words. So just now Melvin said that the quality of pictures is very critical in e-commerce because this is where shoppers usually pay attention to immediately in the first glance. So, so the shoppers, we learned that they tend to look at visuals more than the text, and they also process the visual information better when compared to the words. So the first thing we have done is to improve our product imagery on the e-commerce. So instead of just putting a very simple pack shot, we on top enhance some branding elements, adding with a brand logo. And a very important thing is we on the top right corner we have added the pack size and also the pack configuration in a very clear manner. And we do that for all of our products. So which is very okay.
Actually, move it further on. Okay. There's a lot of feedback.
Okay. So is it better?
Yeah, better there.
Okay. Sorry about that. So we have added a pack configuration so that it would be easy for shoppers to shop at, to look at it. So they look at it and then immediately to know that what pack size it is and how many bottles or how many cans there are. Not only that, we have added some sort of emotional textures behind the imagery because we also learned from the studies that emotional cues help us to help the visibility, to enhance the visibility of our products on our e-commerce sites. Not only that, as Melvin showed you earlier, adding these type of emotional cues also help us to enhance our brand perceptions towards our products. So we have, what you can see is we have done some very little things, but at very little cost or no cost at all, but it does help us on selling in our e-commerce site. So this is how it looks like when we for our improved product. So you can see that our product now stands out much more easier, and when we compare to other products which sold on the same e-commerce platform. So shoppers can notice our products more easy, and our products look much prettier and also more appealing when compared to our competitors. The second thing that we have done is we improvement on some of our product descriptions on our e-commerce sites. So we learned from the study that consumers usually process the information in a central manner, and they do not want to make an effort in terms of reading all the information. So we try to provide the information as easy as possible. So instead of keeping our information left to right, set type of format, we centralize it into a central format, which makes shoppers much more easy to process the information. And we also simplify the information on the e-commerce site. We originally thought that we should put as much information as possible on our e-commerce site, but from the study we know that it is actually not the case. So we simplify the messaging, just put the core messages that we feel is most critical for the product on the e-commerce site. So as you can see, it becomes much more easier for the shoppers to read through the information and to understand the nature of our products. So what we have said is, given that the e-commerce has been changing very quickly, so for us, it's important for us to embrace the change and also apply the learnings across other types of e-commerce platform and across all our portfolios. As we learn more, we will also update our design on a regular basis. The final point I want to make is e-commerce, given that it has become a mainstream shopping channel for our shoppers, especially for a market like China. So the quality, how we execute our product in store is actually as important as how we execute our products on an offline regulars like hypermarket or supermarket. So we should think about that teeny tiny details, because those tiny details will actually make a lot of difference.
Thank you guys very much. Can you give them a round of applause? That was a fantastic presentation.